welcome to my winter book recommendations. So I wanted to give some recommendations for winter time. This is kind of like my favorite time of the year. I'm a very big Christmas fan, and honestly I'm a very big Thanksgiving fan as well, so I'm just excited to get going with all the Christmas books. So how am I going to be doing this is that I'm going to be picking 3 books for each genre. And 2 of them will be a book that I have already read, and 1 of them will be a book that I'm excited to read. So let's just get right into it. So the first genre is middle grade. So for the first genre, I want to recommend 2 books that I've already read. The first one is Frostheart. I have it right here. This is a book about a boy who's basically left abandoned by his parents in this community that's obviously is very much inspired by Alaska, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and he's very much ostracized because he's kind of like an orphan, and he wants to resolve the mystery of what happened to his parents. But the island where he lives is surrounded by monsters, so one time he actually ends up saving a ship from these monsters and discovers that he has powers. And because of that, he gets taken away in a ship. They're ship, but they're ice ships. Like everything is happening like in ice all the time. And he gets whisked away to find the lost city of Frostheart. This book is wonderful. It's middle grade. It's charming. It has beautiful illustrations all throughout. I think it's great to read with your kids and just have like a nice fun adventure time. Not necessarily like Christmas book, but still very much like holiday. The next book that is middle grade that I would like to recommend is Wondersmith, The Trials of Morgan Crow. So this one is the perfect replacement for Harry Potter if you read Harry Potter a million times already. So this one is kind of very similar. Morgan is a girl who lives in a very kind of abusive household. She's believed to be cursed because she was born in the cursed day, and she's destined to die on the night of her 11th birthday. But on the night of her 11th birthday, she actually gets whisked away to the magical city of Nevermore, where she has to compete in trials in order to be accepted into the Academy of Wondersmith. This book is a combination of Harry Potter and Alice in Wonderland. It has a magical hotel. It has a giant talking cat. It has the whimsy. And for the holidays, it also has a big holiday festival that is, they don't say it's Christmas, but it's very much like Christmas coded. So I think it's wonderful. It's beautiful and it's very whimsical for this time of year. And then for the one that I haven't read, I chose The Green House. So this one is about a kid that is basically grew up in this hotel, and it's winter time, so it's not expected to anybody to be a resident in the hotel during winter time. But some people start arriving, and then more people start arriving, and the people start acting weird, and they have to kind of discover the mystery of this greenhouse and the mystery of the mysterious guests. So this seems very, again, whimsical and charming. I love books that are set in hotels, so I think that'll be very much a lot of fun. Okay, and then for the next category, I want to recommend some books for the adult fantasy genre. First of all, the first book that I'm going to recommend is The Night Circus. This is by Erin Morgenstern, and it's the most delightfully written book I've ever read. It has all the charm and whimsy. It's about 2 magicians that were raised by different mentors in order to compete against each other to create the most magical experience in this circus. So the circus is very mysterious. It comes and goes from towns. It appears overnight and leaves the next morning, and it actually has some magic happening. And these 2 star-crossed lovers were trained by different teachers in order to create the most magical experience in the circus. Honestly, the plot is not super interesting. What really brings this book to the magical level is the writing. I feel like it has the most beautiful writing of any book I've ever read. It's whimsical, it's magical, it's beautiful, and I think it's great for this time of year. And the next book that I want to recommend is something completely different. It is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. So this is more like a heart fantasy about 3 different POVs. The son of a king that develops this mysterious illness and is banished to the city of Elantris. This woman who was supposed to marry the son of the king, but is now a widow in a strange city. And this guy who is trying to start this religious uprising, all in the city. So Elantris used to be a city ruled by gods, but one day the gods left, and in their wake, what is left is like a leprosy type illness that people can just suddenly have, and it's not they can't recuperate from this. It's basically a death sentence, even though the sickness doesn't let you die. So all of the people that are affected by this illness get vanished to the city of Elantris, and that's kind of where it all started happening. Like, we discovered some mysteries, we unravel a lot of things, there's a lot of political intrigue. And the reason that I do think it's a little wintry, Christmassy is because honestly, it's just like there's a lot of like descriptions of being cold, of being chilly, of being like kind of like miserable. It is completely different. It's not more because of the magical whimsy of it all. It's more because of the actual cold and dreary of it all that winter also brings. So I feel like if you want to be in a little bit of a depressive sadness, sad girl mood, I will pick up Elantris. It is one of Brandon Sanderson's only standalone novels. So if you're new to Brandon Sanderson, I would absolutely recommend it. It is a great read. Okay, and then for the book that I have not read, I want to read The Bear in the Nightingale. So this book is, when I read the synopsis, it struck me more like a Cinderella retelling. This girl who gets like raised in this town that's in the middle of a forest that is very much snowed in. It just got a new stepmother, and the stepmother made them like stop doing all their magical rituals that they usually do in order to keep the forest at bay and the monsters in the forest at bay. And because of that, some weird things started happening, and it's kind of like a coming of age story, trying to find herself, trying to like battle those monsters. I'm honestly not completely sure, but it is happening in the winter time. It's supposed to have a lot of whimsy and fantastical things, and I'm really excited to pick it up. And the next category is romances. So for this category, I'm gonna just stick to vanilla romances. I'm not gonna include anything smutty. I have my own smutty category later on. So the first book that I want to recommend is The Chaos of Standing Still. This is a book that takes place over Christmas week, where when a girl basically gets stuck in the Denver airport, and she just went through a very big tragedy where her best friend dies, and she has not been able to like move past this. It's been over a year, and the anniversary of her best friend's death is coming soon. So she's basically in a very depressed state. She just wants to go home, and now she's stuck in this airport with a bunch of random strangers. But actually those random strangers help her kind of overcome this massive grief that she has been struggling for over a year. And I honestly think this is a very, very well written young adult romance. It has a lot of like strong messages for people that are dealing with griefs, or just being like don't really know where their brain is and have like separated themselves from their friends and family. And the next one I want to recommend is Let It Snow. This book is written by a couple different authors, and it's kind of like a Love Actually, where like all these stories come together at the end, and it's written by different authors. They write little short stories that are actually interconnected about how like a couple different groups of people end up falling in love, and it's a very, very good like YA romance about like all these different love stories that is actually really charming and cute. And then the one that I want to read this year is The Christmas Orphan Club. This is a book about a group of friends that have rejected the normal Christmas traditions, and they do the same thing with their found family all together. And this is the last time that they're gonna be able to do this, because there's some pretty big life events that are gonna happen that are gonna prevent them from like keep doing this in the later years. So as their last big hurrah, they all get together to celebrate Christmas together again. And it seems like a lot of tension and a lot of things that have been left unsaid are gonna come to the surface. I'm really excited about this one. It's written by a girl that is actually a bookstagrammer, so I think it's gonna be a great way to support her as well. I'm excited to see if it's great. And now for the thriller category. I feel like thrillers and Christmas are perfect for each other. I don't know why. I think mysteries and thrillers kind of thrive around this time of year. So the first one that I want to recommend is The Family Game. This book I read in Christmas last year, and it's about a girl who just married into this very, very rich family, and they all have very strange traditions around the Christmas time. and she's going through the traditions for the first time in her life, and they honestly seem kind of like torture in a lot of ways, because she's having to be like in haunted, like in like kind of haunted houses situations, and the family seems to be guarding a secret, so she has to go through all these family games and discover what the family secret is. And it is amazing, and honestly it's so much fun. It's a fast-paced thriller. You can read it in a day and you won't be able to put it down. And the next one that I want to recommend is The Guest List. This is a book about a wedding that is happening in a private island, where basically it's a closed room mystery. Everybody that could have committed the murder is in one room, and in this wedding something horrible goes wrong. Somebody dies, and only the people on the island could have done it, so you have to discover who did it. And Lucy Foley is perfect at crafting a very good closed room mystery. It's again fast-paced, lots of atmosphere, super fun. And then the one that I want to read this year that I haven't read so far is The Sanatorium. This one is about a sanatorium that gets turned into a luxury boutique hotel, and there's people trapped in there over a winter storm, and somebody gets murdered, and we have to figure out who did it. And again, sounds super fun, closed room mystery in a creepy setting. I feel like it'll be a great time for this time of year. Okay, and now we're gonna move to the sci-fi category. For this, I'm only including science fiction, and I feel like this is gonna be very hard because again, sci-fi usually takes place in their own world, so it's kind of hard because like, you know, like they don't celebrate normal holidays. But yeah, so some of them do have winter vibes. The first one I'm going to recommend is A Psalm for the Wild Built. This is one of my favorite books I read so far this year. It is about a monk that is kind of living in this utopian society. Earth kind of resolved all their issues, but he is still unhappy, and he can't really figure out what is making him so unhappy when on paper he has everything he could ever need. So he just goes in this voyage into the middle of nowhere, into a forest, where he finds the last robot that ever existed, and he kind of has to deal with the repercussions of that, and they have to have a lot of conversation on what it means to be human, what it means to be happy, what is life's purpose. And they do this in a monastery that's over a mountain in a snowy kind of setting, and it's very beautiful. Super short book. And then the other book that I want to recommend for this, I actually own, is The Winter's Promise. This is a French translation of English translation of a French book. This takes place in a world where the world's got fractured into several different islands, and this girl lives in an island where the main power is able to read the thoughts of objects. So she has this ability as well, she's able to move through mirrors, and she thinks that she's gonna be able to just live her normal life, but she actually gets betrothed. She gets married off to the prince of this other kingdom that is actually the Winter Kingdom, where it's very harsh. People have to be very harsh in order to live in these conditions, and they're not known to be the nicest of people. And she has to go into that strange world and that political court and just trying to survive all the conniving people. So I honestly really enjoyed this book. I feel like it's kind of middle grade, kind of young adult middle grade fantasy. And if you like Game of Thrones and that level of political intrigue without all the gruesomeness of it all, I think this is a great series for you. It's already a completed series. There's 5 books in the series, but this one's the first one, A Winter's Promise. And the book that I want to read that I haven't read is The Left Hand of Darkness. Apparently this is one of the first books that actually dealt with gender and being asexual. It's about a guy that is a translator. His name is I, and he goes into this world full of other people, and it's actually a snow world, and he has to be able to communicate with them and kind of bring them into this intergalactic empire and kind of be the bridge in between the two societies. And it's more like a slow-paced anthropological sci-fi rather than the guns, ships type of sci-fi, and I actually really enjoy that type of sci-fi. So I think this will be a great read for me this winter. Again, it's kind of in a winter planet where it snows all the time and it's freezing, so I feel like it'll fit the vibes very well. And then we're gonna move to the contemporary / classic. I'm gonna just call it the classic category because I think a lot of classics do really well in this category. The first one is Little Women. Little Women is one of the quintessential books to read in the wintertime. It's about a group of girls that basically the first chapter is about them celebrating Christmas and waiting for the patriarch of the family to return from the Civil War. But it also sees the little women grow into adult women and their lives and how they fall in love, how they have to deal with a very patriarchal, misogynistic society. It's beautiful written. It has several Christmas scenes, so that's why I included it in this list, and it's absolutely beautiful. The next book I want to recommend is A Catcher in the Rye. This is a classic about a young boy who just got kicked out of boarding school, and he's wandering through New York City because he doesn't want to go back to his parents because his parents are very dismissive and kind of mean. And it's a coming of age story about like an angsty teenager. I feel like we all read it in high school, but if you haven't given it a reread, I feel like it'll be an excellent reread for this time of year. And the one that is a contemporary that I haven't read so far is Birdtown. This is a story about a small town where one of the, I think it was like a hockey players in the town got accused of sexual assault, and this is how like the town in general deals with the accusation, how they have to go through grief and how they have to like upend how they thought of this person and the consequences of his actions in the whole town. This is like one of those classic stories that it's very impactful and everybody should read at least once. Okay, now for my second favorite category. It is the mystery category. So my first mystery that I want to recommend is the Enigma in Room 622. This one takes place in the Swiss Alps. Basically, an author is kind of like out of ideas. He doesn't know what to do anymore, and he just goes into a hotel in the Swiss Alps and just basically locks himself up in there till he gets a new idea of what to write. But when he gets there, he actually discovers that there was a murder in this hotel room. So she enlists one of the other hotel guests, and they are gonna discover what happened in this murder. And this is a dual timeline story. You're in the kind of like present with the author, and you go back in the past with the people that actually what happened during the murder. And it's like actually really cool because I feel like it just gives you those like 1920s, 30 vibes, which I also think are very romanticized. And then the present, and it all happens in the Swiss Alps, and it's a great mystery. Honestly, it's one of the best kind of like well-crafted mysteries. Like when you see it all put together, you are like, oh my god, this is like great. It doesn't have any plot holes. It's just like tied up in a ribbon and gifted to you so perfectly. It is amazing. I really do enjoy it. And the next one is also one of my favorite books of all time, is The 7.5 Deaths of Emily Hardcastle. This book is wild to explain, but it's basically like Groundhog Day. So this person is being revived every day in another person's body till he discovers who committed a murder. So a person gets murdered, and then this other person gets to be in each one of the suspect's body till he discovers what actually happened and who committed the murder. And it's honestly fascinating. It's so well written. You get a different perspective every time. So you have to shift in between perspectives, and it keeps you on your toes, and you think that it's going to be so easy because like obviously one of them did it. So once you get into their body, you'll be able to know who did it, but you don't, and it's very clever how they do it. I think it's one of the best like mysteries. And it also takes place in this like lock room, like big house in the winter time, so it's perfect for this time of year. And then I want to read an Agatha Christie book that I have not read, even though I've read most of her books. It's a Hercule Poirot mystery called The Silent Night. So in this book, Hercule Poirot gets invited to this old Victorian house. You know how it goes. And there was a murder. The owner of the house actually believes that everybody's at risk and there's going to be another murder soon. So Hercule Poirot has to kind of divert his Christmas plans in order to resolve this murder. And you know, Agatha Christie is great, and I think The Murder in the Orient Express will also be a great choice for this if you want to read that too. but I am gonna be reading Silent Night this year. The next category we're gonna go over is YA. I put YA in their own category. I feel like there's plenty of good books to read in this category. So the first one that I want to recommend is Truly Devious. So this one is kind of also a mystery. It's about this girl named Stevie who gets accepted into this like premier boarding school where you kind of can make your own curriculum, but she's basically interested in going to the school because the school was also the site of a murder like in the 1920s, and that murder is unsolved, but whoever solves that murder will get like $20 million or something ridiculous. So her main interest is true crime. So she wants to go to the school so she can finally solve that murder. And it's actually a full book series. It mixed media. It goes back and forth from the present to the past. It has a quirky group of kids. They have like a found family situation. They're snowed in. Honestly, it has everything you need for this time of year. Just do yourself a favor and pick it up if you want like a YA mystery. I feel like it's one of the best ones. And the next one I want to recommend is for you to read either Shattered on Bone or Crooked Kingdom or Six of Crows. Whatever you want to read in the Grishaverse universe this type of year. So this universe, I'm not going to go through it because it's a little convoluted. It has a lot of books, but it's basically Russian-inspired fantasy. The books in the Grishaverse are basically about this girl who discovers that she has magical powers, and she has to fight a shadow force that is invading the kingdom. And the second books, which is better, but I do recommend you reading the Grishaverse before you read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, are about a group of friends that have to do this heist. It's amazing. It's the best books. They just have their found family. They have such strong characters. The wittiness, the banter, how funny everybody is, how lighthearted but like so like impactful the story is. It's one of my favorite book series in general of all time. I totally recommend it if you haven't picked it up. The reason is kind of like it's winter inspired and it's Russia inspired, so it does take a lot of the time place in like snowy settings, so I think it's very good to read in this time of year. The one that I'm going to recommend for YA that I haven't read is The Afterlife of Holly Chase. That's something I'm going to read. So this is a Scrooge retelling, but basically this girl who dies at the age of 17 is kind of like meant like after her death she's put into work into this Scrooge program where basically people are given like what were they called, like they get put into the Scrooge program when they're being bad in order to redeem themselves, and if they do they're able to continue their life. So she's basically just aiding in this Scrooge program, but she's been dead this entire time. So it's about her, even though she's not really part of the Scrooge program, trying to also improve her life, even though there's nothing really she can do about it because she's already dead, but kind of like discovering the love of life again. And I think that's like really fun premise, really fun, and like how is it gonna be executed kind of situation. So I'm really excited to read that. Okay, and my last category is smutty romances. So these are like a little bit more spicy in the romance category. So the first one I want to recommend is A Lesson of Thorns. So this one is a book written by Sierra Simone. It's her most famous book, I think. Maybe Priest is her more famous book. But this is about a group of friends that go into this huge manor in the middle of the woods in the middle of winter. And they all have romantic entanglements around each other throughout like all of their lives basically, and this is kind of culminating into this big like winter solstice situation where they're gonna celebrate together and they're all finally gonna be together again. Honestly, it's pretty much the spiciest thing I've ever read in my life. If you want to pick it up, pick it up. It's actually pretty fun. The next book after that is awful. And Sierra Simone is one of my most hit or miss authors ever, but if you're looking for a spicy book this winter, I would totally check it out. I think it's one of her best ones. And then the other one I want to recommend is something I recently read, A Holly Jolly Ever After. And in full disclosure, I didn't like this book, but I think there's people out there that might. And that's why I wanted to put it in here. Also because I'm pretty low on my smutty Christmas recommendations. So this is the only other one I've ever read. But this one is basically about a guy who used to be in a boy band and a girl who used to be in a very wholesome Christian movies. And they both have had like pretty big scandals in their life recently. And because of that, they get cast as the main couple in the first spicy Hallmark Christmas movie. So they have to basically move into this town together and be part of the cast of the first spicy Christmas movie. The thing is, like, the woman has only been with her ex-husband. She's never been with anybody else. So she's pretty rigid and she doesn't really know how to act for the spicy scenes. So the guy kind of has to teach her how. And honestly, the first half of this book is amazing. I really, really loved it. And the second half of the book, a plot device trope. It has the accidental pregnancy trope. So if you don't like that one, just stay away from this book because you won't like it. Honestly, it kind of ruins the book for me personally, but it's not a bad book. It's well written. It's just like a trope that I don't like, so it kind of ruined the book. If you want to buy it, read the 50% and then leave it at that. I also recommend that if you want to do it. It's kind of fun. And then the last book I want to read for this Christmas season is Licking Her Christmas Cookies. So this one is one that I found on a list on Goodreads. I heard anybody else recommend it. So I want to read it. I'm kind of curious. This is about like a woman who is struggling running her Christmas ornament shop. And she kind of is getting into all these schemes in order to be able to pay rent. She's entering like a Christmas raffle and a Christmas cooking contest in order to earn enough money from these things in order to pay her rent. But the guy that owns her building actually ends up being in a lot of competitions, and he happens to be like 6'5" and super good looking. So obviously there's gonna be some romantic tension because she thinks he's evil corporate man and he thinks she's like irresponsible and doesn't have money to pay her rent. So a lot of like quirky things are gonna ensue and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Those are all the things I want to read for this winter season and all the things that I recommend to read this winter season. I hope that you pick some of these books up and let me know what you like in the comments down below, or if you have any other Christmas recommendations. Honestly, I devour books this time of year, so I probably read all these books and then some. So leave your comment down below with your Christmas recommendations. Bye!